We've been taught to think of heart disease in terms of cholesterol, high blood pressure, poor diet. And yes, all those matter. But let me ask you this. What happens when your body is constantly marinating in the chemicals of fear and uncertainty? What happens when your brain interprets every challenge as a threat and your nervous system stays in fight or flight mode for weeks, months, or even years? The answer is both simple and profound. The stress response, which was designed to be short-term, to help you escape danger, becomes chronic, and your heart becomes the unwilling victim. Every time you feel anxious or overwhelmed, your body releases a surge of stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline. These are powerful chemicals. They raise your heart rate, constrict your blood vessels, and push your blood pressure up so your body can respond quickly. In a true emergency, that's life-saving. But when the emergency is not a tiger chasing you, but an email or traffic or financial worry, what we call psychological stress, those same biological responses are being triggered again and again, even though there's no physical action to complete the cycle. Think of it like this. Your body is revving its engine over and over, but there's nowhere to drive. And what happens to a car engine left running at high RPMs? It overheats, it wears down. That's what happens to your heart. Cortisol, when released continuously, begins to wreak havoc on your system. It increases inflammation, damages the lining of your blood vessels, and contributes to plaque buildup. That's not just a theory, it's been confirmed repeatedly in medical studies. High stress levels over time are directly associated with increased risk of hypertension, arrhythmia, and atherosclerosis. Anxiety disorders, for instance, can raise the risk of coronary heart disease by as much as 20%. But there's another layer to this, one we often don't talk about. It's the emotional toll. When you live in a state of chronic stress, you become disconnected from your body. You stop listening to the subtle signs your heart might be giving you. That tightness in your chest, it's probably just stress, you say. That fluttering, I'm just tired. That shortness of breath, I've been anxious lately. And so the body whispers and whispers until one day it screams. The tragedy is that we often don't act until the symptoms are undeniable. But your heart's suffering doesn't start with a heart attack. It starts with tiny, invisible shifts in your rhythm, your pressure, your chemistry, driven by emotions you haven't yet made peace with. That's why understanding the connection between stress and cardiovascular function isn't just science, it's self-awareness. You see, the heart is not just a pump. It's deeply connected to your nervous system. It communicates constantly with your brain through a complex network of signals, particularly through the vagus nerve. When you're calm, that communication is harmonious. When you're anxious, it becomes chaotic. Heart rate variability drops, a strong indicator of heart health, and your risk of cardiac events increases. That's why stress management isn't just about feeling better emotionally. It's a biological imperative. Now here's the hopeful part. Just as your body adapts to stress, it can also adapt to peace. Just as cortisol can damage oxytocin and endorphins, your body's natural calming chemicals can heal. Practices like deep breathing, meditation, gratitude, laughter, even just being in nature for 10 minutes a day, these things are not soft skills. They are science-backed strategies that regulate your nervous system and protect your heart. But more than anything, it starts with the choice to be present, to slow down, to ask yourself in the middle of chaos, is this worth my heart? Is this worry, this anger, this pressure worth the wear and tear on the one organ that keeps me alive? We can't eliminate all stress. Life doesn't work that way, but we can shift how we meet it. We can train our bodies to respond with grace instead of alarm, with clarity instead of crisis. That choice isn't made once. It's made daily in small moments over and over. And so I leave you with this. Your heart hears everything your nervous system says. If you want a healthier heart, start by sending it a different message, not just with words, but with actions. Let every breath, every pause, every act of self-care become a signal, telling your heart you are safe, you are seen, you are supported. Because when your heart feels safe, it thrives. And when it thrives, so do you. Now, this response is ancient. It evolved to protect us, to help our ancestors escape predators or survive dangerous situations. And when used appropriately, it's a brilliant design. Your heart beats faster, blood is shunted to your muscles, pupils dilate, and your body becomes laser focused on survival. But here's the problem. We are no longer running from lions. We're drowning in emails, sitting in traffic, paying bills, navigating family tension, all while trying to pretend we're fine. And when the brain can't tell the difference between physical threat and emotional turmoil, it activates the same ancient pathways. Day after day, week after week. Cortisol, often dubbed the stress hormone, is at the center of this. In the short term, it's helpful, keeping you alert and energized. But when cortisol levels remain elevated over time, it begins to turn against the very system it was designed to support. Chronic cortisol elevation leads to increased blood pressure, higher blood sugar levels, and inflammation. And inflammation, we now know, is one of the key players in the development of atherosclerosis, the thickening and hardening of arteries that paves the way for heart attacks and strokes. What's equally concerning is the impact cortisol has on our behaviors. Elevated stress hormones skew our decision making. We start craving comfort foods high in sugar, fat, and salt. We sleep less. We become irritable, withdrawn, or hypervigilant. These behavioral shifts compound the physical damage. Lack of sleep elevates blood pressure. Poor diet raises cholesterol and triglyceride levels. Sedentary habits weaken the heart muscle. Stress is not just a feeling, it becomes a lifestyle, and that lifestyle is deadly. This is where the mind-body connection becomes so critical. We must stop treating the brain and the heart as if they are two separate entities. They're not. They are in constant communication, exchanging signals via a complex web of hormones, neurotransmitters, and nerve pathways. When your brain senses a threat, real or imagined, it sends signals that alter the rhythm of your heartbeat, the pressure of your blood, and even the way your vessels expand and contract. Prolonged anxiety, therefore, doesn't just leave you feeling unsettled. It actually reshapes the physiology of your heart. And here's something many people overlook. Chronic stress doesn't need to be dramatic to be damaging. It doesn't always show up as panic attacks or emotional breakdowns. Sometimes it's just a low-grade hum, a subtle tension in your shoulders, a clenched jaw at night, or a sense of always being on. It's the kind of stress we learn to live with. And that's what makes it so dangerous. We normalize it, we adapt to it, and by the time we recognize its impact, the damage is already underway. There's also a psychological layer to consider. When we're anxious or stressed, we often become less connected to our bodies. We ignore warning signs, chest discomfort, shortness of breath, irregular heartbeat, because we're too distracted by external chaos. Stress masks symptoms. It convinces us we're just tired, just busy, just overwhelmed. But the body is always speaking. The question is, are we listening? Let's be very clear. Stress itself doesn't cause a heart attack, but it sets the stage. It creates an internal environment ripe for cardiovascular disease to take root. Combine chronic stress with poor lifestyle habits, and you're looking at a perfect storm for arterial damage, elevated cholesterol, and increased clotting factors. In essence, stress doesn't need to be the assassin. It just opens the door and lets the killer walk in. That's why we must start viewing stress not just as an emotional inconvenience, but as a medical risk factor. Just as we monitor our blood pressure and cholesterol, we must begin monitoring our psychological load. What thoughts are we carrying? What burdens have we normalized? And what practices do we have in place to release that weight? Now, this isn't about eliminating all stress. That's not realistic. Life is full of challenges, and many are beyond our control. But what is within our control is how we respond to those challenges. Whether we allow them to govern our physiology or whether we take conscious steps to reset, recalibrate, and protect the most vital organ in our body. So the next time you feel stress creeping in, don't brush it off. Don't tell yourself to just power through. Recognize it for what it truly is, a signal, a warning, and an opportunity to pause. Because sometimes the best way to heal the heart is not through medicine, but through mindfulness, presence, and the courage to slow down. In the end, your body will echo the messages of your mind. And if the mind is constantly under siege, the heart will suffer the consequences. But if we create peace within, we give our heart the environment it needs to thrive. Let stress be your teacher, not your destroyer. The reason this matters so deeply for your heart health is because chronic stress traps you in one half of that equation. Day after day, the body stays on high alert. It's as if you're driving a car with the accelerator pressed down, but never touching the brakes. Over time, that wears out your engine. In the human body, that engine is your cardiovascular system. And what suffers most when this delicate autonomic balance is disrupted is your heart's rhythm, its very sense of timing and coordination. One of the most overlooked aspects of heart disease is how stress disrupts heart rate variability, or HRV. Now, HRV isn't about how fast or slow your heart beats. It's about the variation between each beat. A healthy heart doesn't tick like a metronome. It dances, it adjusts slightly from beat to beat based on your body's signals. This flexibility is vital. It shows resilience. But when stress dominates, HRV flattens. The heart becomes rigid, less responsive to the body's needs, more vulnerable to arrhythmias and other electrical disturbances. It's like trying to play a musical instrument while someone keeps tapping your shoulder. You lose your rhythm. The harmony falls apart. That's what stress does. It interferes with the heart's natural rhythm. And over time, that disruption increases the risk of serious conditions like atrial fibrillation, high blood pressure, and even sudden cardiac events, not because stress causes them directly, but because it chips away at the system's ability to self-regulate. Now, let's dig even deeper into the philosophical layer here. When we talk about the heart, we're not just talking about a pump. We're talking about a center of wisdom. Ancient traditions, from Chinese medicine to Greek philosophy, have always viewed the heart as more than just a physical organ. It's the seat of emotion, intuition, and balance. When you live in a constant state of stress, you begin to lose your connection to that deeper intelligence. You stop listening to what your body is trying to tell you. You override your instincts, your limits, your needs. And that loss of internal alignment shows up not only in your emotional life, but in your biology. People under chronic stress begin to breathe more shallowly, they tense their muscles unconsciously, they eat in a hurry, they skip rest, and they lose sleep. Each of these acts, seemingly small on their own, pull the nervous system further out of sync. And eventually, the body begins to forget what calm feels like. The baseline resets to tension. So many of us are living with hearts that are not broken, but exhausted. Hearts that are trying to maintain rhythm in an environment that never slows down, never pauses, never allows for repair. And if that sounds like you, you're not alone. This isn't a personal failure. It's a biological adaptation to a world that doesn't make room for rest. But here's the good news. You can shift it. You can retrain the body to remember stillness. Simple practices like deep diaphragmatic breathing, mindful movement, and intentional pauses throughout the day aren't just spiritual buzzwords. They are scientific tools that activate the parasympathetic nervous system. They allow your heart to slow down, your blood vessels to relax, and your body to recalibrate. With consistency, these practices improve HRV, reduce arrhythmia risk, and increase overall cardiovascular resilience. And I want you to understand this at a human level, not just as data on a chart. You have the power right now to change the internal chemistry of your body, not through willpower or medications alone, but through awareness, connection, and choice. The same body that becomes stressed can also become still. The same heart that races can learn to rest. The same nervous system that's been hijacked by fear can return to balance if given the right conditions. This is where heart health transcends cardiology. It becomes an act of emotional intelligence. It becomes a reflection of how we respond to life, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. When you calm the nervous system, you do more than just protect your heart, you reconnect with it. Let me leave you with this. The rhythm of your heart is not fixed. It's a conversation between your mind, your body, and your environment. And every breath, every thought, every moment of stillness is a chance to rewrite that rhythm. So ask yourself not just how your heart is beating, but what it's trying to say. Because the heart doesn't just want to survive, it wants to live in harmony. And that harmony begins when you choose to listen. Think about this. When we're under pressure, really under it, when life tightens its grip and anxiety starts knocking at the door, most of us don't reach for a bowl of leafy greens and go for a walk in the sunshine. Instead, we retreat into habits that feel comforting in the moment, but quietly chip away at our long-term health. These habits, whether it's emotional eating, smoking, drinking more than usual, skipping workouts, or neglecting sleep, are more than just coping mechanisms. They're stress signatures written into our daily choices. The body under stress craves relief. It doesn't care if that relief is healthy. It cares if it's fast. And so when cortisol rises and adrenaline courses through your veins, your judgment narrows. You grab what's available, what's easy, what numbs. A donut instead of a balanced meal. Another glass of wine instead of a walk. A few hours of scrolling instead of sleep. And it's not because you're weak, it's because your nervous system has been trained through repetition to find shortcuts to calm. But here's the twist. Those shortcuts are expensive. They may soothe you now, but they bill your heart later. Let's take emotional eating, for example. Chronic stress dysregulates appetite hormones like ghrelin and leptin. That's not just willpower, that's biochemistry. Your brain becomes more responsive to high sugar, high fat foods, not because they nourish, but because they briefly silence the alarm bells in your head. But that silence comes with a cost. Elevated blood sugar, higher triglycerides, increased LDL cholesterol, more visceral fat, all major cardiovascular risk factors. One moment of comfort can set off a chain of damage inside the arteries. Or take smoking. Many people under chronic anxiety return to nicotine, not because they love it, but because it slows their breath and calms their nerves. It mimics peace. But each puff stiffens the arteries, lowers oxygen in the blood, and adds another risk to the heart's already overworked system. The same goes for alcohol. Used occasionally socially, it may not wreak havoc. But under stress, alcohol can become a quiet dependency, a chemical pause button. And over time, it damages the liver, raises blood pressure, and disturbs heart rhythm. But perhaps the most silent saboteur of all is sleep deprivation. Stress disrupts the ability to fall asleep, and anxiety keeps the mind racing when the body most needs rest. And yet, sleep is the body's repair window. It's the time when blood vessels recover, when blood pressure resets, when inflammation calms. Take that away, and you're asking your heart to run a marathon without water. Night after night, the damage accumulates, not dramatically, but invisibly. So what does this all mean? It means stress doesn't just harm your heart directly through hormones or inflammation. It recruits you as its accomplice. It alters your decisions. It shapes your routine. It creates a lifestyle that your heart simply can't sustain. But here's the hope. If stress can be learned, so can calm. If behaviors can be conditioned, they can also be rewired. The first step is awareness, recognizing when your coping mechanisms are causing more harm than healing. The second step is compassion, not judgment, not guilt. Just understanding that these habits form for a reason, and now they need to evolve for a new one, your well-being. And then comes action. Real, daily, imperfect action. Swapping a stress snack for a breath. Replacing late night scrolling with a bedtime ritual. Choosing water over wine or a walk over worry. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Even one conscious choice begins to shift the chemistry inside you. One act of self-care done repeatedly starts to rewire the nervous system. And over time, you begin to create a new pattern. One that doesn't just manage stress, but transforms it. Because your body is always listening. Every action you take under stress tells your biology how to respond. So ask yourself each day, am I choosing habits that heal or habits that harm? Am I creating a life where my heart can thrive or just survive? I'll leave you with this. Your heart is not just a muscle. It's a reflection of how you live. The patterns you repeat today will echo in your arteries tomorrow. But the beauty of the human system is its ability to change. You're not locked into your stress response. You're not a prisoner of your habits. You are the author. And every day you get a chance to write a new rhythm, one that honors your heart, not just keeps it beating.